What's up, guys? Welcome back to Newswave. Whole bunch of stuff to talk about today. Keep in mind, we still have that new 3DS XL giveaway going, and then we have another Flash giveaway coming up towards the end of this week. Should be a lot of fun, but there's some interesting developments in the gaming world, as always, so let's get started. The first thing we're going to talk about today is probably the biggest news so far of the week, and that is Andrew House of Sony Interactive Entertainment has announced that he will be now moving away from the company. Of course, he pretty much oversaw the entire PlayStation branch as it really flourished. Now, he's been with Sony for 27 years, since before the PlayStation 1 actually launched. He's been there the entire time, and most notably, he was promoted in 2011 and then oversaw pretty much the entirety of the PlayStation 4 launch and lifespan. He is one of the core components in why Sony really jumped ahead and took over this generation. A lot of it has to do with his dealings and really his workings internally, and now it sounds like he just wants to move on to something else, and that's a little confusing to a lot of people. It's odd to leave when you're doing this well, really. I mean, the PS4 is flying off shelves still, 4 years later, and looks like it will continue to, but I guess he wants something different. It happens. We did see, for example, an executive leave, Peter Moore leave from EA to go manage an entire football team, and that's fine. I don't know where Andrew House will land now, and this is what has a lot of people talking right now online. I did see some people talk about, oh, maybe he'll go to Nintendo. Maybe Nintendo will bring him in because he did so well with the PlayStation brand. Maybe he can help out and just help Nintendo get to even that next level, because sure, I have a feeling Andrew House has a lot of relationships with different developers and different business dealings he's done in the past, so he probably knows quite a few people, has a lot of connections, and of course has a good mind for business with the home console. But that's kind of the issue with the Nintendo Switch right now. It's not really a home console, it's a hybrid. I don't know how well Andrew House would do with that, especially since, well, after talking to reporters not too long ago, actually, which is really interesting, that well, we're not really interested in handhelds with Sony, and he kind of talked about how he even thinks the Switch has limited markets. So could that have been someone kind of in the background up above him, obviously, like the main CEO of all of Sony, saying, yeah, we want to do that? Well, maybe, but I mean, he was the head of the entire PlayStation brand, so really what he said at that time goes. No, instead, I think he'll go into something outside of gaming. I don't think we'll see him in really any of gaming for a while now, and that's kind of a shame because he was obviously good at his job. I mean, all of PlayStation kind of turned around with the advent of the PS4, and he was the one on stage taking those shots at Microsoft, dropping the price. I mean, really just leaving the crowd going wild at the end there with the PS4 at E3, so people know him for that at this point, and who knows where he'll land. I don't think he's going to be in gaming anymore. I think he will now exit the gaming field in search of, I guess, the next big challenge in front of him. You might be asking, well, who are they going to replace him with? I mean, you have to have somebody lined up, right? And they do. They have someone who's actually very qualified, and that is John Kodera. He's actually been with Sony since 1992. Yeah, he actually started working with, remember the Walkman from Sony, those big MP3 players and everything? He worked with all of those and kind of got those running, and then he moved on, most notably in 2013, where he actually managed and pretty much took hold of and charge of really Sony's online infrastructure, specifically the PlayStation Store, and most recently something like Sony's View, which is like their cable service, kinda just goes over the internet, works on PS3, PS4, all their devices, and then of course PlayStation Now. So what's going to end up happening is Andrew House is going to move to a chairman position as John Kodera ends up taking over, and it's like a transitional period, and then at the end of the year, Andrew House will then just leave the company and go on to, I guess, new things in his life. But it will leave the question, will anything actually change with Sony, or will pretty much it just be business as usual and stay the course? Now, for the most part, because of how close these two work together, I think it'll be business as usual for a while. You won't see anything short-term change. Maybe crossplay. That's the one thing I was thinking. Maybe crossplay does take a bit of a stance where they're more open to it, because it seems like Kodera is a little more interested in things like service-based, different things over the network. Like PlayStation Now, for example, he was the one who headed that entire operation, came up with how it would all work, and obviously worked alongside a ton of people to make that happen. but he might be more interested in the network side of things, getting stuff like service-based games, things like we talked about, Phil Spencer talked about service-based games, things like that. He might be more interested because he is more on the side of the networking, right? He worked with PlayStation Store, and he might be more interested in kind of evolving that over, I don't want to say over anything else, but maybe doing that more so than developing the system in an offline capacity. So it could be very interesting to see going forward. Don't expect really any short-term changes. If anything, expect whatever Sony's next system to be to kind of have a little bit of his molding in it. Obviously, that next system is probably already planned and underway, but of course, he can still come in and make some changes as he sees fit because, well, he will be head of the entire division at that point. Next up, let's talk about Halo in VR. Yes, it's finally happening to a degree. Now, I'm going to explain to you what's happening here. Technically, Microsoft had their entire mixed reality presser that took place yesterday, where they kind of did in the afternoon and talked a lot about what they were going to do going forward. And the biggest thing is, well, they announced a new headset from Samsung, which looks okay. The problem I have with a lot of these headsets, I was really hoping to see just any of them, either whether it be Acer's or Samsung's or somebody's, their headset come in at a more budget level price. I would have loved to see one of these headsets come in baseline at like $250, right? I know $200 might be a bit of a stretch, but $250, that might be possible, and at this point, the cheapest one I can see is $400. But I thought Halo VR, you know what? That could work. They could make a really cool world with Halo VR. I don't really know how they'll do the first-person shooting parts. I'm sure they could do it with the motion controls and make it all work. The moving part is a little off too. I know they have joysticks so you can technically move. Either way, that world could work perfectly with it. And then I saw the game. It's called Halo Recruit. Somebody, it looked like on YouTube, did like a play session at the event, and it doesn't look like I was hoping. Sure, you have the movement and everything. It seems like it's like a gun simulator. You're technically just sitting there shooting everything around you. It's like a training simulator kind of. I know it's called Halo Recruit, and the idea here is just the first entry into VR. It's not their be-all, end-all game. It's kind of just, hey, look, here's how Halo may look in the near future if we decide to really tackle a big VR game. This could be kind of the motions and the movements you go through to shoot, and of course, there's no real story or anything to it. Just try it out. Now, this game becomes available October 17th. You can either download it for your VR headset. Now they do have Oculus and Vive for sale on their marketplace, so I assume it'll work fine with either of those. Otherwise, if you don't have a VR headset and you just want to try it out according to them, you can go to any Microsoft store and try it out there in person. I know trying out VR stuff in person is a little weird, but you can go do it if you want just to see how everything works. And then, of course, the mixed VR headsets will become available later on this year. They're currently up for pre-order. Like I said, the cheapest one I saw at the time of recording was $399. A little too high. Just come in below $300. I think you'll get a few more people interested, and we can get a little more mainstream with this VR stuff. Next up, let's talk about loot boxes, because I know everybody's excited for them, right? Everyone loves loot crates. You see it all over the internet. People love spending money to skip the game. Well, there's two instances of loot crates that we found out the other day. One has to do with Forza 7, which is a whole thing on its own, and it's a little ridiculous when you actually start thinking about it. It starts to kind of hurt my brain a bit. So let's start with WWE 2K18. Yes, that will also have loot crates in it. But here's the thing. According to their Twitter handle, they will not, and I repeat, they will not have microtransactions. Instead, you earn all of the currency in-game. So to me, that's fine. I have no problem with loot crates kind of being a random draw thing if you're using credits that you earn in the game rather than credits that you earn from pulling your credit card out of your wallet. Now, look, I know it's all optional, obviously. You don't have to buy microtransactions, but come on, doesn't that defeat the purpose of the game? Buying items to skip parts of the game. I like the idea of loot crates if you're earning them. I also don't mind, believe it or not, the idea of loot crates and microtransactions if it's in a free-to-play game, a game you just download, but you still have the option to earn the credits. It's just a grind. I really don't mind that. If it's not a $60 game, yeah, sure. If it's like a free game and they have microtransactions in there, they got to make their money somehow. But when they sell you a $60 game and they expect you to then pay money for these loot crates to skip parts of the game, and that becomes a problem. The other problem here is when they take features out of the game and then sell them back to you, which is something that Forza 7 is currently being accused of right now. So here we go, Forza 7. Ars Technica had an interview and wrote up an entire article about it, very good article by the way, where they talk about Forza 7 and they kind of go into detail about how their crate system will work. Basically, you get credits, you spend them on crates, random draws happen, and you get like cosmetic items, things like that. But they also talked about modifications being a part of them. Not the modifications you'd think about. Not like a turbo for your car or better brakes or something like that. No, these modifications are ones that have been available in previous Forzas right out of the bat. Right out of the gate, you have them. And what it does is it essentially makes the course you're playing on harder so that you can then earn more credits. For example, something they pointed out was you can make it nighttime instead of daytime, and then you get 30% more credits upon completing that race. So just step back for a minute and think about what I just said. You get credits, you then use them on a loot crate hoping to draw a mod, and then you use that mod on the next race. That's right, the thing you just got out of a crate that you spent your credits on, you then use in the next race to get more credits, to then buy a loot crate, hoping that you get another mod out of it to then increase your odds of getting more credits in the next one, to then buy loot crates and maybe get a cosmetic, but hopefully we get a mod so we can keep doing this. Do you see the problem there? And while right now, if you have Forza 7, you might be like, well, there's no microtransactions, so it's fine, you're just earning these credits. Correct, except officials over at Turn 10 are saying, oh, we're going to add microtransactions. We're just examining to see what a good balance would be. What can we put in increments of this fake currency to then have you pay with your credit card? If there was no credit card available, I am fine here. Like if there's no like payment system, you're just earning these credits, fine. It's weird that you took out a feature to then sell it back to people in those loot crates. Just don't do that. Make it all cosmetic, and then I wouldn't even care. If it's cosmetic and nothing that has to do with the game, I don't mind. But apparently there's other stuff in there too, and it's interesting that they are ripping content to then sell back to you. I don't like that. Let me know what you guys think about the whole Forza 7 thing, because it is going crazy online right now with people, especially fans, kind of backlashing to the developers right now. And in our last bit of news, let's talk about Unity and the Nintendo Switch. We all know Unity. We've used it in different games that we've played so far. And while it does usually work, we've seen a lot of times where games are getting pushed back right now because it's not working so well with the Switch. Games like Yooka-Laylee, they flat out said we were waiting for the next version of Unity to come out so we could get this game on the floor and get it out, get it really out to the public to play, but there were so many issues with the previous Unity that were really messing us up. We got the new one. Now there are other issues we have to now resolve before we can sell it to you. And this, obviously, after it released towards the beginning of the year in April. So now we're still waiting for this game because apparently Unity was not working that well. There's also one called Battle Chasers Night War that was pushed to later on this year as well, again, citing issues with Unity. And now Unity has come out and told us that they are at least working with Nintendo on all of this, working side by side with them. This comes from GameIndustries.biz saying, we continue to partner closely with Nintendo to optimize Unity on Switch and are happy to see our developers finding great success on the system. They go on further to talk about how 30% of the games on the Switch are made with Unity, and those that are really getting it to work are finding success on the sales charts. And yes, that is true. People who are building with Unity are getting good sales, but I mean, most things selling on the Switch right now are getting good sales, especially in the eShop. Those smaller games seem to jump to the top of the charts quickly because they're not expensive endeavors for really the consumer. Golf Story isn't expensive, but it's a phenomenal game. It's completely worth the money, and it jumps to the top of sales charts despite what, little to no advertising? We didn't even know the thing was coming out until a few days before. So it was pretty quick, and people latch onto those indie games, man. Indie games and the Switch go together so well. It's a portable system that those indie games work so well off of. I mean, everything just comes together perfectly with indie games on the Switch, and I really look forward to that. Stardew Valley, get ready for that one. That's going to jump to sales chart. Boom, day one, top of sales charts, no sweat on the eShop. So look for that on Thursday. That'll be fun tomorrow. But either way, I hope they get Unity figured out because it's a good engine when it works. It is. It's low cost for really anyone who wants to build a game, which is great because then you get very unique ideas. The cheaper it is and easier it is to build a game, the crazier you're going to see ideas, the more risk you'll see. And that's what I'm hoping here. That's why I was really happy when Unreal Engine went like free for you to basically build your game, and then you discuss licensing issues after it's done and ready to sell, because then you don't mind since, well, it's ready to sell. You don't have to pay money in to then take a risk to develop a game that might not even work out. You just download the thing and you try to build a game. So I hope Unity gets it figured out, because the more tools that are readily available to these indie developers and these smaller companies, the more games you're going to see. The crazier, the more unique games you're going to see, and that is exciting. So hopefully Unity, Nintendo, you guys get this worked out, and we don't have these games that are really delayed. I mean, Yooka-Laylee, like, what we're going to get to 7 months? Are we going to see it in November? Are we going to see it in December? Are we going to see it this year? That's the question. And that's it for Newswave today, guys. Make sure you comment, like, and subscribe. All that good stuff. Let me think about any of the stuff we talked about today, whether it's Andrew House pretty much leaving Sony. He, head of the PlayStation division, flying high, and now it's announced that he is pretty much stepping down to a chairman role and then leaving at the end of the year. Was it surprising to you, or are you thinking that maybe he's going to jump fence and go to Nintendo? I don't think so. I think he's pretty much ready just to leave the gaming division altogether and maybe go do something a little different. I mean, it happens. You get burned out on these kind of things. He's been with Sony forever, 20-something years, 25, 26 years. So I can understand why maybe I want to leave and go try something new. Also, of course, let me know what you think about these loot boxes. Are you okay with them in general? Are you fine with them if there's no actual money being exchanged? Or do you just not like them at all? I mean, I don't like Forza 7's idea of making you buy credits to then spend to then try to get more credits with these mods that were in the old Forzas. Seems a little low, Turn 10. I don't know if I like that. That's it for now, guys. I'll see you next time.